So this video has been long been waited about my opinion of the Capital One and Discover merger. And it's funny enough, this ended up coming about because one of my most watched YouTube videos was going over the Capital One 360 checking and savings account and why I think it's one of the best ones and still is the best one in my opinion. But in that video, there's a lot of comments of asking whether or not the Discover merger is going to be changing my opinion. And it's really depending on the person really, because some of the effects or changes that are happening may affect others, why it doesn't affect me, or is going to be affecting me, why it doesn't affect others. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons, and a lot of those are going to be my personal opinion. And also I did get the new Discover card that came in. So I'm just wanting to compare it with the old Capital One debit card, which is the original MasterCard, and just to see whether or not the design is the same or one's going to be more flimsier than the other. I do want to state that Capital One did send me an email telling me that they are going to be sending me a new card, and I believe they're doing this in sections because my wife ended up getting this email first and actually got the new card before I did. So don't feel like you're left behind, because I'm pretty sure they're doing a process to where they're actually sending out every single card accordingly. But if you have yet to receive it, this is what the email is going to look like. So I'll pop up here on the screen, and as you just tell you, Capital One is switching its debit card network and a new card will be coming your way in the next few weeks. So this is like a really simple email, and within the next couple of days you receive the card. And before we get started with the video, if you're new to this channel, my name's Andy. I'm a senior programmer analyst that loves to talk about personal finances. Here in this channel, we like to talk about credit cards, budgeting, and financial tools that can possibly help you guys out. But enough of that, let's go get started with the video. Now, starting off with the pros, I highly believe that you're going to start receiving rewards on debit cards. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I did some research, and it turns out with Discover, you do get a 1% cash back of up to $3,000 per month. Now, in my head, I started thinking, why doesn't every single bank do this? And what I found is actually very interesting. So it states here in this article that I found, it says that some banks, including Capital One, stopped offering debit card rewards after the Durbin Amendment to the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 placed a cap on interchange fees, often called as swipe fees, that banks can charge merchants of debit card transactions. This cut into the bank's revenues, and some adjusted by limiting rewards. Now, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know if something like this even existed. I'm pretty sure there's many rules and or amendments out there that prevent banks from doing certain things. But I didn't see or heard of other banks doing debit card like rewards. So that's something that was really curious to me. But if you continue reading, this is where it really starts to get really interesting, because where it states here, it says, however, because Discover serves as both a card issuer and a card network, it is exempt from those caps. One of those Capital One's first moves following the merger will likely be to shift its debit cards to Discover Payment Network, which could lift the caps on its swipe fees and generate extra revenue. Now that actually sends out like a little clue on why they're trying to push out these debit cards, so that way they can make money. And obviously everyone's out there to make money, which is the banks trying to make money. But how is this going to help us as a consumer? I strongly believe that something like this, once this comes into effect and when they fully transition everything over, I think the Capital One checking accounts are now going to be earning rewards on debit cards. Now, I know this channel is more based off of credit cards, but for those who are not really into that kind of game or trying to maximize every single dollar and then you just stick to a debit card, this will be benefiting those specific users that can earn a little bit of cash back with a specific limit. But now that we're talking about the Discover side of things, for people who are banking with specifically Discover, they actually now going to be getting access to the Capital One ATMs, branches, and cafes. Now, here in the Houston area, I live not too far from one. I have yet to go in there, but it is a good benefit to have, because for those who are banking with Discover, you would know that you're only going to be getting online access. So if you never need a chance to go into a physical bank location, you now have that option. Now, obviously, you're going to have to check to see whether or not Capital One is available in your certain location, because here I live in the Houston area, so there's many of them available to me. But I know there's some areas that they actually absolutely have none. So you do have to do your own research and see whether or not you can take advantage of this benefit. Now, as far as which checking account is going to be switching over, I have yet to find any research on that, and maybe in the comments below you probably found something. You can let me know what you think will happen as well. But from like what I see, I don't know whether or not Capital One is going to be going to Discover and then everything's going to be under like the Discover platform, or if Discover is now going to be transitioning everything over to Capital One and everyone's got to be using the Capital One platform. So that is something I couldn't find. So hopefully there's something out there, or maybe in the future we can see what they're deciding to do. But as of now, I don't think they made a decision. But again, you can probably prove me wrong in the comments section below of whether or not that was already announced. Now, the one thing I'm really hoping for, and this is going to be really high wishful thinking, is that they're going to be moving the Discover rotating category cashback card into the Capital One ecosystem. And why I want this is because they will now have a trifecta. With that trifecta, then it would allow them to compete with Citi and Chase. As you already know, a lot of these bank issuers have been doing a lot of changes, that being Citi adding American Airlines to their transfer partners, and then Chase revamping their Chase Sapphire Reserve card, which allows them to get more credits and you get more value out of the card. So everyone's been changing their setup, right? And with Capital One, they really did more of a negative change because they took away the access of bringing a free guest to a Capital One lounge. That really depends on who you are too. So there's a pro and con to that, which is basically if you're a person that doesn't like crowded areas and you're traveling alone, that's probably a pro for you. But for people who bring family in, it was definitely a con for those specific users. So I'm thinking Capital One is going to be bringing something again to actually compete with these other issuers. And I think adding that multiplier is going to be a big factor because as of now, if you don't already know, the main reason why Capital One is known is because of their Capital One Duo. So you only have to hold a Venture card and the Capital One Saver. But you can see that there is a empty slot, which is for gas. And I think having the rotating category for almost a quarter of 5X, I think that would help that setup out. And I mean, that's just not the only thing, right? You have like Amazon, you have like Target, you have Walmart. It depends what Discover chooses, right? It's basically up to them. But I think that will be a big push and to actually be able to compete with the other issuers. Now, hopping over to the cons, one of the main ones is going to be the international acceptance. Now, this is kind of like how I mentioned before, it really depends on the person of who this is going to be affecting. So I put this in the cons because for people who are not really into the credit card game and they only use their Discover card, this is where the issues are going to be happening if you fly internationally. And if you don't already know, Discover is not really accepted internationally as much compared to Visa and MasterCard. But if you're strictly in the US and you fly domestically, Discover more than likely is going to be accepted. I had a Discover card for 9+ years and I have yet to ever find a location where it was declined or like not accepted. So if you can prove me wrong, again, put it in the comment section below because I have yet to find anything to like not accept Discover in the US. Maybe across seas, yes. But like I stated before, if you're not a person that flies internationally, this change is not really a con for you. Now, one thing that I would state that will be a con for everyone is going to be the helpline. Now, I'm really curious to see where they're going to be transitioning their helpline to because based on my experience, Discover's helpline is amazing. I have yet to have any issues with them compared to Capital One. And with Capital One, when I reached out the couple times I did, it was like transferring me from one person to another, and then they'll tell me, oh, you're in the wrong department, and let me transfer you over. So I was in a constant circle, which I eventually got my issues resolved, but it's just that hassle of like dealing with that was never happening to me with Discover. And Discover ends up having a little chat box as well, which is kind of similar to Amex, but Amex is a lot faster compared to Discover, so I will give Amex that. But the fact that you have that chat capability with Discover, I think that's a win with them. So if they're able to choose between which one they want to go with, I'm hoping they go with the Discover helpline because I feel like their systems are a lot more smooth compared to Capital One. So now that we went over the pros and cons of the card, it is now time to do the unboxing of the new Capital One card. Now, it is not going to be something very special. We all know that it's just a simple debit card, but I do want to see what the difference is here. Okay, so again, this is going to be the original card. Just really basic. It says debit, MasterCard on the front. This is what it looks like on the back. And then if you want a front view, this is what it looks like. So yeah, it's a really simple debit card. And then we're going to go back down to this. So this is where the new one's at. So once you open it, you're going to be getting 3 new things here. So this is just regular, your checking account, what you can or can't do with it. It's fairly straightforward. And you do get this letter here. It tells you details about your new card. And if you want to pause it, you can definitely pause it to read more what you're going to be getting. So here it just says domestic acceptance, the PIN, and fee-free checking. And then on the back, again, you can pause it here. It says your new network, the debit card number, MasterCard network benefits, and international acceptance. So again, go ahead and pause it just in case you want to read more in depth of what you're going to be getting out of it basically. And here is the new one. I'm gonna go ahead and open it, and there it is. Already I can see the debit has been changed. So if you look at this here, it says debit on the bottom right and then debit on the top left. Kind of like the fact that it's just sleek. It doesn't have the Discover logo in the front. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be on the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. All right, so I went ahead and take off the sticker. I did add some black tape so you can cover up my information, but this is what it looks like on the back. So you can see the new Discover, Diners Club, and Pulse. So that's pretty straightforward, really nothing too special on the back. As far as the design, you can see with these two, this one has a little lighter blue in the middle and then it's like a gradient out. This is more of just like a solid blue. I kind of like it, to be honest with you. It's a very faint like gradient, but overall I think this card is like better. I think I like more of the minimalistic look, but it is pretty flimsy compared to this one. The original is a little bit thicker, I would say, and this one's a lot more flimsier. So that is something if you're curious to care about if it's more flimsy. Again, this is just going to be the front view here, what it looks like. But overall, yeah, that is the review of what I think of the new merger between Capital One and Discover and the new card. Again, I don't really use my debit card, so this is really going to be a card that's going to be staying home or in my sock drawer because I tend to use a lot more credit cards. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this video at that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But as always, let's try to keep things simple, and I'll see you on the next one.